Oh yeah, I'm really happy.
All in all, I am really very, very happy.
I would say I'm content.
I'm John Helliwell at the University of British Columbia. For a dozen years, I've been an editor of the World Happiness Report. As soon as people focus on it, it makes them think themselves, what is it that makes for a better life?
I'm Frank Martla. I'm assistant professor here at Aalto University in Finland, and I study well-being and happiness and meaning in life. Governments cannot make citizens happy, but governments can remove many sources of unhappiness.
Our valuation that we use is simply the average answer to a question that asks people to think about their life as a whole, with the best possible life as a 10 and the worst as a 0. How would you rate your life today?
I would say I'm a solid 9.
Probably about 8. Not fully happy, but like happy.
I would rate my happiness at 9.5.
GDP per capita, healthy life expectancy, the extent to which there are other people they can count on, freedom in their life to make key life decisions, trustworthiness of their institutions, and their own generosity. They are things that do help to explain why some countries are happier than others.
I think that the Netherlands may be one of the happiest countries.
I think New Zealand's the most happiest.
Not America.
I would say Finland.
Finland is once again the happiest country in the world for the 7th year in a row. They're not quite yet getting tired of being asked why.
Why is it that every year Finland and other Nordic countries are in the top 10 of this World Happiness Report? These tend to be the countries where the level of corruption is the lowest and the level of free speech and free elections is the highest. Having like relatively good levels of unemployment support, paternity leaves, maternity leaves, free healthcare, free education. These are also factors that contribute to citizen happiness and make sure that there's less unhappy people in the society. The Finnish people tend to think of themselves as these quiet types of people.
There is many sayings in the Finnish language, but the one that people mostly use is that you can't really complain. So that's a form of happiness too.
We are not trying to achieve anything big. We are happy with small things.
My name is Petri Rajaniemi. I live in Helsinki, Finland. I live here with my wife and my 3 daughters.
My name is Sari Kontra, and I live in Heinola, Finland. I live here with my husband and with my 3 kids. They are 8 years, 6 years, and he is Jens, and he is 4 months old.
They do have very high equality of happiness, and that's given to them by the equality of availability of good education and good health care for everybody.
You can choose the school, the profession, the education that you want without having to first calculate whether you can afford it. And I regard that as a very high level of freedom, the freedom to choose how you want your future to be.
Normally, I work as a special education teacher, but now I'm at home with my baby and also study at the same time. We have the system where the fathers are able to stay at home with the babies as well. So basically, actually, my husband is at home with the baby and I'm studying. But my husband is getting the money for taking care of the baby. Yeah.
It's people caring about each other, and so naturally their governments themselves deliver a lot of the services that put that into action.
We know that the system that we uphold, they will take care of less fortunate people.
I think the happiness overall in the United States has gone down through the years.
I don't think we should be ranked very high.
The U.S. was 15th last year and 23rd this year. That's the lowest ranking it's ever had.
There's like less trust in government in the United States compared to Nordic countries. This polarization and low trust in the governmental institution is something that is driving down the happiness.
I think we have a lot of conflict in our country right now, a lot of people who are not respecting each other's opinions and beliefs.
Just like seeing how divisive everything is, it's just amplified by the day.
Polarization of happiness makes people unhappy. Polarization of political views probably makes them unhappy.
Everyone here in Finland, we share the same background, the same history. We have the same generational experiences.
Most of us are middle class. Our poor are less poor than in many other countries. But also our rich are really less rich.
No doubt, the more fractious the society, the harder it is to keep up happiness.
If Finland has one superpower in the world, it's the ability to trust each other. It's about your attitude towards other people.
I think that when you concentrate on the small things, you're able to enjoy your daily life.
There's no such thing as the pursuit of happiness. It's an oxymoron. Basically, if your life is about pursuing something, I'd say you're quite far from the content happiness that people often associate with Finland.
Nobody really looks forward to aging. I mean, nobody says, I just can't wait to be 90. When I tell people, say you're 70 now, you're going to be happier in 10 years. They kind of can't quite believe it. My name is Catherine Esty, and I'm working and thinking about aging, really helping people to reimagine what aging can be and what it really is today.
I'm Dr. Laurie Santos. I'm a professor of psychology at Yale University and host of the Happiness Lab podcast. So the historic pattern for happiness has been what researchers call a U-shaped curve. Basically, we're happier, younger in life, and then we kind of hit middle age, kind of late 40s, and that's the sort of nadir. Everyone's not feeling so good. But then the good news is that happiness seems to improve as we get older. And in fact, the slope seems to continue into older age.
If we look at the generational groups as the boomers and their predecessors, as they pass through their lives, they're getting happier each year. If they're happier with their social interactions, they're less lonely, and they're happier with their lives as a whole.
Most people, even though they might have read that somewhere, they don't actually believe it. Most of us still, in our bones, dread aging.
We're going to go over in the chair like we always do.
I think we have this misconception when we look at older individuals that, they're less healthy, maybe they're getting frail, they're not able to do the things they were able to do before. And we look at that and we think, oh my gosh, when I imagine my life like that, I'd be so unhappy. And what we forget is that the science shows that our circumstances don't matter as much as we think for happiness.
The modern medicine has revolutionized what it actually feels like day to day to be aging. People can have chronic conditions like diabetes and heart disease and still have very full and active lives.
And what we don't project is all the things that older individuals have in their lives. More social connection, more time. We forget the power of those things.
5, 6, 7, 8.
Mental health of older people is better than younger people. I mean, we are less stressed, less angry, less anxious. By the time you're 70, most people have let go of ambitious strivings and they're kind of relaxed, enjoying their freedom. They're living more in the present. Very few people in their 80s had lots of regrets. On the whole, people had worked through kind of the things that they might have had grudges about and to be really present where they are.
I think we also forget the kind of wisdom that comes with age. As you get older, you've just been through a lot of stuff. And with that, going through so much stuff comes a certain sense of resilience, a certain sense of self-compassion.
You really can't get beyond 50 without having some losses. But certainly by 80, almost everybody's lost many of their friends. Happiness just doesn't come from having a life without loss, a life without setbacks and failures. But it's really all about one's attitude and ability to manage the loss and also to regain, after the losses, a sense of equilibrium and to be ready to move on.
So there's evidence that our negativity bias literally goes down over time. That older individuals, especially as you get towards the end of life, those individuals wind up focusing more on the positive.
There's something that researchers are calling a positivity effect that appears to be learned from about midlife on. Stop fretting about the things you can't handle. Don't overemphasize the negatives, and put things in perspective and enjoy what's good about your life. And that involves thinking better rather than worse of other people.
I'm just a few months away from my 90th birthday. The joys of my life are my cup of coffee in the morning, my New York Times, and doing a crossword puzzle, having dinner with friends. Just to be able to savor those smaller, ordinary pleasures is one of the big secrets. I'm looking for a society where we are proud of it being the years we have. There's so many of us getting to really live out our lives and to a full experience of life in all its stages. That's really a marvelous, splendid thing.
There's definitely times that I feel anxiety. I think just being a college student comes with a lot of anxiety.
I think there's lots of things that are affecting young people's happiness. I mean, if you look at the report, for example, I think young people are experiencing less social support, even more loneliness than we've ever seen.
In the United States especially, people worry about where they're going to be able to go to university, how they're going to be able to pay for that, how they're going to be able to get jobs. So there's a whole range of real-life stressors.
My name is Taya Mitchell. I am a junior on the pre-law track at Georgia State University, and I am 20 years old.
Young people today, they don't like this culture of feeling depressed and anxious. And I think they're looking for solutions, things they can do to feel better. Humans have this really innate negativity bias. We're really prone to see the bad stuff in the world. I think it's natural when you look at, say, the United States standing in the World Happiness Report to feel a little bit demoralized. It's like, oh my gosh, we're dropping, and what can I do about it? I think the report also gives us some strategies that we can each use as individuals and in our smaller communities to make things better. One of the awesome things about this scientific approach to happiness is that we've learned a ton about simple behaviors and mindsets that we can engage in to improve our overall happiness, to feel better. It can just be talking to the barista at the coffee shop, picking up your phone and scrolling through the list and texting a friend who you haven't talked to in a while, just saying, hey, thinking of you, how's things going? These really small actions can improve our sense of social connection and can, in our community, improve the sense of social support that everyone's feeling. Intentionally going out and doing nice things can help us fight the negativity bias in this really important way.
In the Gallup World Poll, there are 3 questions about benevolence that we look at. One is helping of strangers, one is donating within the last month, another is volunteering. And all of those have risen since 2020, helping of strangers by most.
Giving back and finding those ways to take time out of your day or take time out of your week to do something to help someone is definitely a thing that makes me happy in life. I got started volunteering when I was young. My mom always had me and my cousins volunteering in different things. But as I got older, especially when the pandemic hit, that's when I started doing more work actually in the community.
It's encouraging news that the younger generation, even though in some countries they're feeling less happy and less good about themselves, are in fact even more likely than the older generation to have stepped up and helped strangers and volunteered and donated in COVID times. Despite their unhappiness, they're benevolent.
When I think of why benevolence makes us happy, it's kind of a strange thing, right? That doing nice things for other people winds up making us more happy.
We've studied earthquakes around the world and tsunamis. It's surprising the extent to which natural disaster, by making it possible for people to work together to help each other, makes them feel better about themselves and about life, because they discover the truth, which is that their neighbors are really much nicer people than they thought they were.
One of the recent service projects that I participated in was where we made sandwiches and handed out packages of food and period products to the people of the Atlanta area experiencing homelessness. When you get to have that firsthand experience, it can just break down all of those barriers that you put up and all of the stereotypes that you built around it. You will be surprised to find that taking that time to care about someone else's life as much as you care about your own would improve your happiness a lot and just make you a lot more happy.
Nightly Films is sponsored by Pfizer.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.